Well, talking You Decide tonight, in just over a month, South Carolina voters will head to the polls.
And one of the big races is for our Superintendent of Education. The current state superintendent, Molly Spearman, announced last year she will not seek re-election. So this means for the first time since 2015, we'll have a new person in that role. Ellen Weaver running on the Republican side. Lisa Ellis is on the Democratic side. And we know many of you are closely watching this race, so we want to learn more about both of those candidates.
That's right. I spoke with both Weaver and Ellis to get an idea of how they would tackle the big issues, because there are a lot. Yeah. And today we're hearing from Weaver about her goals if elected. This would be a tough job going into it. South Carolina's schools continually rank in the bottom 10 in the nation. There's a teacher shortage year after year. There's also a teacher turnover issue. 36% first-year teachers did not even return to the same position the next year. So why are you the candidate that is able to turn things around for South Carolina schools?
Well, Justin, it's great to be with you, and really turning that sad statistic around is why I'm running. We've talked about the problems that we have in our education system for decades, and it's time we actually get somebody into this office that has the ability to build the team that it's going to take to do something about it. You know, I so value the skills and the talents that our teachers bring to the table. When I travel the state and listen to them, I hear that they are tired, that they don't feel respected, that they aren't able to enforce discipline in their classrooms in the way that it needs to be enforced. So we have a big job ahead of us, but that's my #1 priority, is ensuring that we get high quality teachers into those classrooms and that we support those teachers once they're there, because we know that that's what's going to make a difference for kids.
And reading over your platform, time and time again, you say you want to cut red tape, you want old-fashioned common sense, you are pushing for school choice, homeschool credits, yeah. You're pushing for vouchers. How is that less red tape? It almost kind of seems like, I know where you're getting at in the point as far as wanting to give more choice to parents, but as far as the cutting of red tape, the state's involvement still seems like it may be on that same level, even though you may be pushing for more school choice or those vouchers.
Well, so within the traditional public school system, we have so many siloed programs and just layer upon layer upon layer of bureaucracy that has been added to our school system over the years. And many of those programs started out in a good place for good reasons. But the fact is that they may not be serving our students and our teachers in the way that they were intended to. And so when I talk about cutting red tape, I'm really talking about taking a comprehensive look at our education laws and regulations here in South Carolina and saying, where's dead wood that we can cut? We know that our teachers are covered up in paperwork. Some of that is just so unnecessary and duplicative. So that's the red tape that I'm looking to cut. In terms of education choice and opportunity, you know, we see this idea working in states all over the country, but the one that I always like to talk about is Florida. Florida has some of the oldest and largest choice programs in the country, and that could be public charter schools, that could be private school choice through education scholarship accounts. There are many different varieties that it comes in, but the common denominator that you see in those states that have choice programs is that parents are more satisfied when they can get their child into a learning environment that's right for them. And it's actually better for teachers too, because teachers now have a marketplace for their talent. Many of the children who participate in these choice programs are children who are struggling in a traditional education environment. And so when you're able to get them into an environment where they can be served better, that also frees up teachers in the general ed classroom to be able to focus on the students who they might have had less time to focus on before. So choice is really a win-win for parents, for teachers, and for students.
So much of that bureaucracy that you mentioned was basically put into place for accountability of these public school systems, where you can tie basically the money to the test outcomes, tie the money to some sort of accountability standard. What does accountability to these schools look like if you were to become superintendent?
It's a great question, and really, honestly, very little money is actually tied to accountability if you look across South Carolina. The philosophy of policy making that I bring to the job of superintendent is very simple. First of all, I want to fight for flexibility. I believe that decisions about a child's education should be made as close to that child as possible. So that means empowering parents with choices. It means empowering teachers to be CEOs of their classroom by cutting some of that red tape by supporting them when there needs to be more discipline in the classroom. And I want our principals to be CEOs of their schools, because it's really principals that build that great culture that retains teachers, that makes an environment that a teacher wants to work in. And so I think fighting for that kind of common sense approach is really what I'm striving to do.
And I read over that in your policy as well, saying the CEO aspect, that using that comparison. For some, that's concerning, is because they're worried with the charter school programs, they don't want their child's education to be like a business. So using that CEO metaphor, how are you able to basically help along those parents who, or educators who may be concerned, saying, you know what, this is not a for-profit business?
Well, that is certainly true. Education is not a for-profit business. You're talking about the hearts and the minds of children and the lives of future generations. But I do think that there are principles that apply across all sectors, and those kind of common sense principles of empowering teachers to run their classrooms in the way that they know that they need to be managed to allow them to teach. I think that's actually a very positive approach to education, and one that I don't think people should be afraid of. And when I travel across the state and share that message with people, it resonates broadly, because I think that so many times our principals and our teachers feel like their hands are tied. And so when you talk about cutting that red tape, when we talk about empowering them to be CEOs in their classroom, I think they understand the spirit in which that's communicated.
Okay. Your opponent has called you a threat to public education. South Carolina ranks 23rd in the nation in highest daily attendance for public school. How is public education not going to be forgotten about under your leadership?
Well, you know, I have put myself out there for this office and all of the abuse and misinformation that comes along with running for public office, because I care deeply about public education. I actually am the only candidate between the two of us who has graduated from a public school. And so having been a public school graduate myself, I understand many of the challenges that exist within our public education system. And I know that education is the front door of the American dream, and that's really why we have public education in America. It is a value that we all share. And so when my opponent says things like that, that's frankly just irresponsible rhetoric. We need to take that kind of political fear-mongering out of this race and actually talk about the issues that matter.
And you bring up credentials. Part of it is you need a higher degree, an advanced degree. You have now re-enrolled for Bob Jones University online. How is the master's program going?
It's going incredibly well. I'm actually just a few weeks away from finishing my degree, which is what I committed to do. When I started the degree, I said I'd be finished by mid-October. I am well on track to do that and finishing up my final few classes.
How has that balance been, running the campaign and also basically being a full-time student trying to get this master's degree in a short amount of time?
It's incredibly difficult. I'm not going to lie. I haven't stopped working since the time I got up in the morning until I go to bed at night. But you know, that's the level of commitment that I'm going to bring to this job. It's really been like a boot camp, a great preparation for, I think, the hard work that it is going to take in order to get the job done. And that's my commitment to the people of this state, is that I'm going to be on the job, giving it not 100%, but 110% every single day. And I think that the way that I've run this campaign is a demonstration of that.
Okay, and really, lastly, you have talked about you're going to have an army of volunteers. You've mentioned here that you want to make sure these teachers have a voice, that their opinion is heard. So that army of volunteers, what does that look like for you?
Yes, well, that's a wonderful question. So when we talk about what it is going to take to help triage our students, we know that so many of them are now 2 and 3 years behind because of the damage that COVID did to their education journey. I want to put out a call to action to volunteers from our faith community, from our military and veterans community, from our business community, from our parental community. We need everyone engaged in our schools, helping to support our teachers as they support our students. And so that looks like mentoring programs, that looks like tutoring programs. There are already many incredible examples of this happening in pockets across the state. I was just speaking with some folks here in Greenville at the Urban League about some great tutoring that they are doing to increase financial literacy for students here in Greenville County. So I want to organize and harness and highlight those great things that are already happening in our communities and figure out how we expand them, because if we're going to help our students recover, it's going to take all of us to do it.
All right, Ellen Weaver Forrest, thank you so much.